It's been a second. It's been a while, but yeah, we're back, and we're back with a new normal. I think I used to envy you when I was seeing you broadcasting from home, and you've got this whole thing going on. I'm like, yeah, Chief G is bossing it up, eh? I didn't think I'll get this far as well.
Yeah, no, it's the new normal. Some of us are always ahead of the curve.
Mhm.
So yeah, so welcome to the club.
Yeah.
We welcome you with open arms. Yeah, so let's see. I mean, I hope you're not
Uh-huh.
one of many people that are now digitally transformed but are still thinking in an offline manner.
No, I mean, I'm one of those people that is always ready
Yeah.
to embrace technology, and yeah, I'm ahead of my time anyway. So yeah,
No,
way ahead
you know,
of my
there's
time.
there's so many people that are online, but they are doing offline things.
Mhm.
So yeah, no, welcome. Thank you very much for having me on your show, and I bet it's going to be a really interesting thing. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting show. So yeah,
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be yeah. So let's start off. You are a parent, and your daughter is supposed to go back to school. How do you feel about that?
no, you know what? It's okay. Uh, we'll see them
Uh-huh.
next year. We'll see them next year. No,
Sorry,
but the thing
you could what?
I'm saying we'll see them next year.
Yeah.
So the thing is, the
Uh,
she goes to at least they're offering online lessons, so
mhm.
they've said that option is there. You don't really need to bring in your child, so that's a good thing that yeah, she'll be able to learn from here for a very long time. Yeah, but the admin side of it is quite
Mm.
hectic because now I become the teacher as well because I've got to do the prep work, I've got to do all the necessary what, and it's just hectic. Yeah, so that's a lot of work on my side. Yeah, yeah.
So, so parents become as good as teachers as well, because if it's online, it means you got to be present from the time they start until they finish. It,
Mm.
it's a lot of work, eh? It's also how to um, use these devices on their own.
Yeah, true. I mean, over time, I mean,
Is
for
that
the
not the
young,
case, though?
yeah, I mean, for the young ones, over time, they're going to be able to use these devices
Mhm.
and go to Zoom or MS Teams on their own. Obviously, the older kids, the ones in high school, primary school, they can handle it on their own. They just
Yeah.
need to make sure they follow their schedule properly and stuff like that. But the new
Yeah.
normal is crazy
No,
because uh, I know of so many organizations that have been trying to have this digital transformation for years, but nothing has been happening.
mhm.
But they managed to do in 2 weeks what they couldn't do in 5 years. So that's the crazy part. That's the crazy part. So I mean, as the English say, they say necessity is the mother of all of invention. I mean, when you're in a corner, that's when you see the best of people. So yeah, so people are put in a corner, and people have transformed themselves into digital natives now.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's it. Yeah. Otherwise,
It's-
mm,
yeah.
seems seems like there's
I like the fact that you say things, things that took a lot of 5 years to do. COVID-19 has sort of transformed every to do this thing.
yeah, you're breaking up a lot. But anyway, yes. So
Amazing, eh?
yeah. So the new normal is quite hectic. Um, there are these people called Luddites or Luddites. Have you ever heard of Luddites? Luddit. Okay, let me start again. Luddites. Luddites. Have you ever heard of Luddites or Luddites? These are anti-technology people that went about. They were so resistant to the first industrial revolution. These guys specialized in looms. You know what I mean by looms. They used to do the whole weaving of textile and stuff like that, and they didn't want automation, and they went around burning any factory that was implementing any sort of technology. So that we have those kind of people in this particular era where they are resisting change. They are resisting the inevitable, because the world has changed, and I know it's been triggered by a disease. It seems like it's a health crisis, but actually it cuts across all fabric of society, and all things are so connected to such an extent that even the civil unrest that you're seeing in America for Black rights, it's connected to the transformation of society. It's connected to the change that has been triggered by COVID-19. So it's important in our circles to actually take time and think about it, to say, how can I future-proof myself? How can I make sure that in this new normal, I am relevant, I have the relevant skills, I have the relevant mentality and thinking, because you cannot think like in 1980 after this, because a lot of things are definitely going to be digitized. For example, an employer who has always thought that it's important to see people on they call them bums on seats, right? They think that having 5,000 employees is success, right? But now they're realizing that, you know what, all those meetings that we're having, they could be just an email or phone call. All those bums that we had, they were not necessary, because we are actually working and being more productive and efficient with skeleton staff away from the office. So it means that the real estate agents, the commercial agents, are also suffering. So at the end of the day, it's important to say, if I'm in tourism, right now tourism is non-existent. Tourism is non-existent. Hospitality industry is dead. But will it resurrect? If it resurrects, in what form is it going to come back as? So all those kind of things, we need to be able to ask ourselves, to say, in the new normal, how are we going to respond, and how are we going to make sure that we create a future that we want? And it's unfortunate, because you find that this time, when we're supposed to be reflecting and thinking about what we're going to do in the future, we have some countries like Zimbabwe, for example. It seems like we're actually accelerating in the opposite direction, backwards, because you find, the corruption that's happening with the politicians, the abduction of activists. So it's so retrogressive. This is the time. Crisis is supposed to give people a purpose to unite against one common enemy and fight for the betterment of humanity, regardless of political affiliations, regardless of tribal affiliations, or any of those things that we use to divide ourselves as human beings. So I believe that countries like Zimbabwe are missing the point at this particular juncture, because we should be stronger together right now as we speak, because there is a common enemy, an invisible enemy that we cannot see. So it's up to us to say we want to change our circumstances, whether the sanctions are removed or not. It is irrelevant. And then when you come to the rest of Africa, it's a time for us to actually say, okay, we've got that African continental agreement to open up borders, to ensure that there's more trade, intra-Africa trade. But how can we leverage technology to achieve those objectives? it seems like the African free trade area has been put on the side as everybody's just closed their borders and is following the myopic nationalistic thinking that is now prevalent in Africa and beyond. So this will not help us because we, as little tiny African states, do not have capacity to compete with the likes of China, because we're dealing with 1 billion people. Zimbabwe is like what, 17 million, 15 million. That's a tiny little population. Look at South Africa, it's about 50 plus minus million. And again, that's a small market, you know what I mean? But imagine if we could open the whole markets, the whole African markets, and we don't have to do anything drastic, because if we create our own Alibaba, our own Facebook, our own Google, our own LinkedIn, that means that we're already achieving regional integration through the use of what? Of technology. And just a few policies of migration, of mobility, to say, if I'm a lawyer and I studied in Zimbabwe, I should go and be able to practice in Nigeria and vice versa. You know what I mean? Not this thing of a lawyer who is just here in South Africa cannot practice in Zimbabwe or vice versa. Then that's silly. I mean, you remember the case of Advocate Mpofu from South Africa, when he wanted to represent MDC in the High Court in Zimbabwe, and was barred because he couldn't get a work permit, right? Now that's small thinking, that's village thinking. And we should be taking this opportunity to reflect and say, what is hindering us from moving forward? You know, what is hindering us from being the best that we can be in the global value chain? Because if you see this COVID-19 has shown us that we're too dependent on China, and if China closes its doors, we are stuck. We don't have any means. I mean, even little toothpicks, even the N95 masks, little things that don't need any advanced technology to produce, but we rely on China because they must produce and bring them and dump them on our continent. But what are we doing now to say we should never be dependent on China and the West ever again as a continent in Africa? And if we say, okay, fine, maybe these are aggregates. When we talk of Africa, it's an aggregate. Maybe let's go down to the individual unit. As an individual, what are you doing to make sure that you are going to be relevant in the future? In fact, today and beyond, you know, what are you doing? Because if all of us endeavor and do something as individuals, then collectively, society as a whole will move in a positive direction if we are individually moving in a positive direction. So, because you can never tell me that you're waiting for some politician, some Chamisa or some Malema to change your life, because whether it's Malema, whether it's Zuma, or whether it's Mugabe, Mnangagwa, whoever, Kagame, it doesn't matter. What matters is, what are we as the citizens, we the people? We have the power to change our fate. We have the power to determine the direction and the fate of our continent, of our households, of our countries, our provinces. We have that power, and we cannot delegate our responsibility to push technologically, to push development on the continent of Africa, and complain that politicians are letting us down. So we have to. Obviously, there are bad policies, there are bad politicians, corrupt politicians, very decorated thieves in our midst, right? Who are supposed to be leading, who we gave power through elections and other statutory instruments to try and have an ordered society, but they're stealing, they're misusing our trust, they're betraying our trust. But is that the end? Do we now give up and throw our arms down and say we cannot do anything because Mnangagwa is corrupt, or whoever is corrupt? No. If we put Mnangagwa there, we should be able to remove him, because we have the power, we have everything we need in order to succeed. Yes, I see Mr. Wildfires. Yeah, I was busy having a soliloquy on my
Yeah.
own because
The new normal is crazy, eh? So my internet decided to twerk on
yeah.
me, but I'm glad I've reconnected. We're back on now.
Okay.
Yeah.
You see, this is the problem of using inferior networks.
Which network should I be using now? Maybe you should suggest that so that I get rid of my ISP.
Yes, get rid of ISP because if they're not giving you value for money, then why are you paying?
Exactly.
We actually should be demanding to say, if I've paid my hard-earned money for a service and the service is substandard, then there should be ways of recouping my value. Because many time we tend to just ignore these little things, and then when they grow to be systemic pandemics, like the corruption that we're seeing, like in Zimbabwe, then it's a problem. But now we want to react when it's a big problem, but we're not solving it. It's a small thing. If Econet steals 2 cents from you, make sure that you if it takes you $200 to get back that 2 cents, let it be a matter of principle. Because next time they're going to steal 2,000 from you.
And you at that time you're just waiting and hoping that they sort out the problems without even voicing out in the hope that no, it will be fine, they'll sort it out, it will come right. But time is moving and you're losing money, you're losing business, you're losing revenue at the same time.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. So what did I miss? What did I miss? What did I miss when I decided to go Tupac on you?
Yeah, no. I was just talking about how we as citizens, we the people, should be taking control of our destiny, taking control of our lives, instead of waiting for politicians, instead of waiting for change to happen to us. So we'll have to have a real look at how we see the world. Is it still relevant after this technological shift? And how can we stop our dependence on China for manufacturing? You saw we're struggling to come up with just masks or basic things that we should be manufacturing locally, and it doesn't need a lot of technology. The old grannies there in the village can actually make masks, all they need is cloth, right? Yeah.
True.
Yeah. So we are on enemies. And if we don't change our mindsets, then even after COVID, we'll still be the laughing stock of society in the global value chain.
I was actually laughing when I was thinking about this period before before this whole COVID, how churches were buying factories and converting them into churches, right? Sorry, how these churches were buying these factories and converting them into churches, and the majority of the people that come to those churches are poor people. So come to think of it, if you had converted those factories into factories that are manufacturing these face masks. The face mask is the in thing at the moment. Everybody is looking for a face mask. Everybody is looking for a surgical glove. But where do you go?
So it's a cancer that we have in our society now, where individuals are taking advantage of the gullibility of our people that are not applying their own thinking, critical thinking to situations. In the end, they get used by these guys. But anyway, it's a willing buyer, willing seller. These are transactions that no one forces anyone to do. So there's the liberty of a freedom of religion. You're free to follow who you follow. You're free to go to any church you want to. But at the end of the day, if you're not winning in any way, then it's a problem. But maybe the wins are not necessarily material. Maybe the wins are not money. Maybe the wins are social inclusion, a spiritual and non-tangible. So it's easy for me to sit here and say,
Anyway.
the willing buyer, willing seller, this is a transaction.
Mhm.
I could. It's easy for me to judge from afar where I am, but you don't know what they're getting, because if I don't understand what it takes for someone to sit and eat grass in 2020, or drink petrol at the command of some guy who calls himself a pastor. So it's their choice, and it's not my place to condemn them, because they've chosen. Because anyway, we are who we are because we are collections of the choices that we've made and the experiences that we've encountered along the way. So it's their choice, it's their choice. And right now, it's my choice as an individual, like what Mr. Mawere is asking to say, whose new normal are you talking about? Are you talking about your own personal experiences or someone else's experiences? So here I am talking about my experiences, and I'm extrapolating them to an aggregated idea of society that we have to individually take stock of where we are and what this COVID-19, what this new normal after this disruption is, right? And what is it that we are going to do as individuals, So what am I going to do to make sure that I win after this? Because life is about survival of the fittest. We can sing Kumbaya together, Wildfire, but at the end of the day, it's about survival. I want to survive, right? I will look for the spouse that I feel will give me a healthy child. You know what I mean? I will look for an opportunity that will give me money, not for money's sake, but so that I can buy the protections that money can give, the luxuries that money can give, so that I'll be protected from the ills of society. So at the end of the day, it's about self-preservation. It's about me making sure that I am ready for whatever comes. And wherever this transformation takes us, I should be ready for it. So that's the most important thing. And I'm also looking at my thinking to say, what are the biases that I have as a human being that are impeding me from moving forward? Is it a case of me thinking that the day that Chamisa is going to be president, then that's the day that I'm going to be free? What's stopping me from being free? You know what I mean? What's stopping? Do I think that the white man is naturally racist? That was a question that was asked by a lady called Rachel Adams. She's got a beautiful video that I saw yesterday to say, so do you think that the white man is inherently racist? And how is, if true, how is that impeding me from being the best I can be? And how is it impeding them to be the best they can be, right? So all those biases, unconscious biases that we have in life, how can we get rid of them so that at least this time around, after this COVID, we can all sprint and run, as Mr. Mawere says, on my dash. I'm carrying my load on my dash, right? So the dash of life.
And, I mean, so there's a whole lot of people, that a lot of things that have been happening during this lockdown, and it's some of the things that I, as an individual, cannot ignore or choose not to address. Being an individual that is in the media space, the issue of Black Lives Matter. I think yesterday I posted something on my WhatsApp status. I said all lives matter. And didn't I get a backlash? People saying, no. Since when do all lives matter? It should be Black Fest. I was like, no. The moment that you realize that as a human being you matter, then that's when you realize that everybody's life matters. So is this a period for us to, as a people, to be only focused, to be racial profiling each other and saying only the Black ones matter and forget the other races?
No. You'll find that all lives do matter, right? So structurally, right? The whites have won the competition, or the system. They've set up a system that protects them, right? So this is a revolution. there's nothing wrong with Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter, they're also pushing, just like the whites pushed to be superior in economically and to be able to set the rules of the game, to be able to own slaves, to be like they did that, right? But now the black people are fighting to say, you know what? I'm also going to fight because just like you, I want to win also. So if the whites now say, okay, now, let's play fair, let's be equal, right? And say, and if the whites sleep and the black people keep pushing, one day you will be doing white whatever white lives matter 100 years from now. For now, these blacks are pushing for equality. Whites are pushing to keep the system as it is because they are benefiting. At the end of the day, like I said, it's a dog eats dog world. It's about natural selection. It's about survival, and each with their kith and kin are fighting to be relevant. And it's a natural fight. It is necessary actually for this fight to happen so that equality, if it exists, should be achieved, right? Or a semblance of equality, if it exists, then it can be pushed to fruition. Yeah. So it's natural.
Okay. All right. So let's take a breather, Ejai. But when we go on this break of ours, there's a small little clip. I think it's about 4 minutes. So our commercial break is this clip that I'll play now. Let me see if I can sort of bring it here. Pay attention to what this guy says. Let me see.
Blacks and cops aren't getting along. I don't know if you've seen the news in the past 400 years, but I don't know if you've seen it. Apparently, we've hit a rough patch. My brother's a cop, actually. I don't fuck with him. I love him. I don't fuck with him. Not right now. It's too hot. I only see him Thanksgiving. And even then, I'm like, I'm reaching for the potatoes. He hates that shit. He doesn't find it funny at all. I think it's hysterical. We can't agree on anything anymore. As a country, we just can't agree. We just fight about everything. We can't even agree on Black Lives Matter. That's a controversial statement. Black lives matter. Not matters more than you, just matters. Matters. Just matters. That's where we're starting the negotiations. Matters. We can't agree on that shit. What the fuck is less than matters? Black lives exist. Can we say that? Can we say, is that controversial? We always ask for the lowest common denominator. We ask for the lowest rights. Gays were fighting for equal rights. Equal rights. Could you believe that's an actual stance you could have? You could be for equal rights. That means there's people out there saying, I think everybody should have the same rights as everyone else. And there's other people like, no.
Okay.
That means there's people out there saying, I think everybody should have the same rights as everyone else. And there's other people like, nah, son, I disagree. I just don't think so. Black people was fighting for civil rights, not even equal. Just civil. Can we get civil? I'll take civil rights. Just be civil. We want civil. Can we get civil? Turn the fucking hose off. Can we just get... They don't tell you Black lives don't matter. That's not what they say. That's not the argument. They hit you with that slick shit. Like, well, all lives matter. Really? Semantics? That would be like if your wife came up to you and was like, "Do you love me?" And you were like, "Baby, I love everybody. What are you talking about?" I love all God's creatures. What are you saying? You're no different. Why do black people always have to get over shit so quickly? Thanks, black lady. Right? Why do we gotta get over shit? Every time we bring some shit up. Slavery. Oh, that was 400 years ago. Segregation. Oh, you guys got Black History Month out of it. Come on. We gave you February. Police shooting. That was 2 weeks. Come on. You still? 9/11. Oh, never forget. That's why this September I'm getting a t-shirt that says "All buildings matter." Let me see how that works.
Right. Like comedians.
Who was the comedian?
Yeah. Oh, you wanna know who the comedian is?
Yeah.
No, I'll give you the name of the comedian. He's a very interesting guy. His name is Michael Che.
Okay. Never heard of him. All right.
You should check him out. But look, from this, I picked up a couple of things, right? In terms of how, in general, people would look at a smaller picture instead of the bigger picture. I mean, the example that he gave, that the gays were fighting for equal rights, but the blacks are fighting for small little things. Why don't we just fight to say, let's fight for the human race, let's fight for the human species, and treat each other the same, equally. Shouldn't that be the statement that we should be making out there to the world?
What I can say is that the downtrodden shall always fight. If it's not Africa fighting against the developed world, if it's not the G20 versus the rest of the world, there's always going to be a protagonist and an antagonist in any given transaction. Maybe that's why in the Bible, where two or more are gathered, you need Jesus, because there will always be inequality, but we should thrive to put rules and structures and policies in place that allow for everybody to be the best they can be. If the playing field is level from a policy, from a structural, systemic structure, right? Then I, as a black man, or you as a white man, can run your race to the best of your ability. And if you make it, you make it. If you don't, you don't. But it's not delineated according to color of skin. You know what I mean? So we are saying, and those those Black Lives Matter are right, because they're saying the system is rigged against us, because even after the abolishment of slavery, nothing changed structurally. You understand? Nothing changed. So we're saying we just want a playing field, a level playing field, where if I am the best candidate to get the job, let me get the job, and not because I am black, I'm already judged as a criminal. I'm already, being picked out in the streets of New York and being frisked just because you're black. You know what I mean? So it's mistreatment of black people that was saying, no, it should end. Let us, if we're just human, just like you, if our lives matter just like you, then let's have an equal footing and follow this American dream. Let's follow this American dream where we say you can't be anything you want to be, as long as you work hard for it, as long as you do what you do to be the best you can be. So really, it's a justified fight. It's to follow the rules of nature, which say that the guy who's down is going to fight. I don't know if you've seen it when you're watching soccer. The
Yeah.
team that wants to down, it attacks and attacks and attacks. And now you can't come to me and say, attack this way.
Yes.
Don't burn the buildings. Don't
Uh-huh.
violent. But we've tried that
Yeah.
for 5 years. It doesn't work. So I am just a guy who is
Yeah.
also who wants to make sure that the kids of my kids, when I become that ancestor who fought
Yeah.
for my grandchildren. That's
Uh-huh.
that's a simple argument and it's valid. I support Black Lives Matter 100%.
So if the white guy there gets attacked, you don't support that. You're not standing for the rights of the white guy also that gets killed.
Okay, so tell me how many black kids are being killed on a daily in the sustenance of the current system. So really, either way, there's collateral damage along the way in pushing for.
So the white guy will also, black people that are being killed, that's collateral damage as well as we move forward to white supremacy.
Yeah, I mean they're already superior because they own the system, right? So we're saying to maintain and sustain that system, they have to unleash terror. I mean, look at Mnangagwa, where when people try and toy and whatnot, he beats them. He takes out the army to make sure that he suppresses you, right? You understand? And when you're beaten enough, you won't do it. But if you're,
is this not?
But listen, if the downtrodden people of Zimbabwe, for example,
yes,
are serious about their liberty, Mnangagwa would not be in their way. The police will not stop them. They will tell them, screw that, right? We are going to.
That's black on black.
Eh?
That's black on black.
No. I'm giving conceptual examples, regardless of color. You understand? I'm talking about the downtrodden, right? One who is being suppressed and the suppressor. The suppressor will fight, whether he's black or white or what, they'll always fight. When the gender inequality, the women will always fight. The men will fight to keep the system as is because they're benefiting, but the women will fight. So it's justified. If women are fighting for gender equality, they will fight. If blacks are fighting for racial equality or racial equity, whichever way you want it, it's justified, right? And then when equality or some level of equilibrium, right? If the scales tip again, right? And then the whites are now the downtrodden and the blacks are the whites are going to fight for equality. So we are always fighting towards some equilibrium of thoughts, whether it's house, whether it's anywhere, it's about equilibrium.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's see. We also joined by Mr. M. Mr. M, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
How are you?
How are you? I see we need literacy around the philosophy of life.
Okay.
That equality is a gift of nature. That no man or woman was created to oppress another. That life itself is not charity. That you can go to a philanthropist and get more of it. Even the givers also have to give into life.
True.
If that is the case, how can we talk of Black Lives Matter as if a black person exists? Because not human being exists as black or white. Just imagine a human being giving birth to a lion. How would that work? We are born into a class of creatures called human beings. What makes us human beings is not our divisions or or the way we look, the way we speak. So those who are saying one can be racist, they already are according that person a superior destination with life. That is a class of people that is created with more wisdom, more time to be able to do the things that others cannot do. Even to limit your freedom is costly. You cannot limit someone's freedom without giving up your own freedom.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Before you respond to that, Ezai, let's also recognize BLM. I guess that stands for Black Lives Matter. Who's joining us also? BLM. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Your take on All Lives Matter versus Black Lives Matter. On which side of the street are you at?
I'm on the side of All Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I feel like I understand like there are sort of inequalities that exist and that everyone is always trying to address. But then I think the way that is now being done is that it's not the right way, in which you have to sort of continue pushing the narrative on a certain race of people that they are victims of their circumstances, that literally they are destined for doom because they have a different color, that they cannot make it in life unless the white man approves. They cannot do anything without the help of the white man. So what that does, in as much as it's enlightening you about the situation of where you are coming from, I feel like to a great extent it takes away that courage, that confidence in you to feel like you can actually do something with your life in the long run. So that's where I then start to say, so if it's being done like that, then I won't be a supporter of campaigners who then say Black Lives or this lives matter or whatever the case might be. I feel like everyone has the chance to make it in life, and like what Mr. Mtunga Mawere said, life in itself is very random, and it's like nature just decides to give gifts in terms of wealth or everything to certain people. Some people are born blind, some are born short, some are born tall, some are just born in good families, some are born in different countries. So then for us to say there is a world that exists where everyone is free, where everyone is equal, that I think is a lie that I feel like most Black people are being made to believe. And in doing so, because we are not realizing that that world doesn't actually exist, we are now bitter, we are now more angry, and we all we now do is feel like we are victims, and we don't think we can actually find the solutions to our problems. We feel like it's someone else's responsibility to make our lives better. So we campaign to say, white men, can you do this for us? White people, can you do this for us? Can you allow us more freedoms? And the third part is that even if you go to these prominent Ivy League universities, you still have Black kids who are complaining about inequality. And then you ask yourself, you are at an Ivy League university, but still you're complaining about inequality. What type of inequality are you complaining about? Because there are certain kids who can't even afford to go to such universities, and yet you have someone who is at that university and claiming to be, discriminated against and so forth. So I feel like,
in essence, you're saying a Black man will always complain.
Yes, and it's not. And it's not our fault. Should I say it's not our fault to some extent, or it is our fault to some extent? What am I trying to say is, we don't understand the people that actually tell us we are victims, that the intention really is to drain us of all the confidence or the positive outlook that a Black man can have on life. So when that is done, you become hopeless, and at the end of the day, what you do is you become a habit. You adopt a habit of complaining that it's someone's fault. It's either it's the white man's fault, it's either it's the leadership, it's the political leadership's fault, it's probably it's your parents' fault, it's probably of a generational curse that exists on you, it's probably because of Satan who is affecting you. So you have all these reasons everywhere we look at. Either you blame your country, or they blame your parents, either you blame. We are always shifting blame. But what I want is to see a generation where young people, especially black people, despite the challenges, because life in itself comes with challenges. You find someone from a different race who will just discriminate you because you look different than that person, or
But,
sometimes just
but you seem to be black yourself.
to be what?
We can't even see you. That's where the problem starts.
Yeah.
No,
Nito.
Mr. Mawere, I need to settle. I didn't think you would allow me to speak before I settle. I usually like come on these platforms all the time with you even. So you probably recognize me.
Just show your face so that the diversity of ideas coming from human beings.
So,
Yeah.
so
Oh,
Mr.
alright.
M, you don't
All
allow
right.
people to speak. He's intimidated by you.
All right. Yeah, that's a good start. You are a human being. Okay.
So let me just settle and then I'll activate my camera.
Okay.
That's fine.
There's no settlement when you want to talk to people.
So you know what? This
Set-
gentleman, I didn't get his
Yeah.
name. What's his name?
So Tatenda
guys,
is the name.
Tatenda. Okay.
Yeah.
Tatenda. Okay, so the problem that I have with you, in fact, it's not a problem. You're so self-contradictory to an extent whereby all your arguments are nullified, right?
How am
you're-
I saying?
Okay. You're saying that the class of people called black people are always crying that the class called white people are suppressing them. Already,
The Chinese, whosoever you want to call them, we are always the victim of every race on this planet.
were quiet when you were speaking, right?
Oh, sorry.
So you find that you've already classified people, right? Because if you look at it, let's go back to how we learned anything on Earth, right? If you go to biology 101, what do you learn? You learn that these are animals, these are plants. There's classification, you understand? Classification. If you go to language, you learn about adjectives. You adjectives, right? A tall guy, a short guy, a black guy, a white guy. So adjectives and classifications are the basis of segregation, right? And for us to make sense of the world today, for us to say this is a Mercedes Benz, this is a BMW, it's because we have been able to organize the world through classification, through adjectives, through making sense by delineation, right? Depending on attributes, right? So those attributes are the same things that I use to discriminate. And now, Tatenda, it'll be faithful of you to be a denialist, to deny that black or white exists. Those things exist because we created them, right? We created them in our making sense of the world. That's why you find that even within the black community, there are the yellow bones and the black ones. Again, it's a subdivision. So think of it like this. If I was to say it in mathematical sense, right? The human race or the universe is a superset, right? And then we have subdivided it into subsets for us to be able to make sense of the world. You understand? Because even our science, it's reductionist. We reduce to the smallest unit possible, and then pick up from there in terms of aggregation. You understand? So black and white exists, and then the social dynamics now. Anywhere in nature you find it, whether it's trees or animals in the world, the downtrodden shall always fight to survive, so that their next generations have a chance at surviving as well. It's the propagation of what? Of a species. If you don't agree that a species exists, then that's a problem, right? So right now, in the world order as it stands, white people are structurally at an advantage because they've been able to secure. They've been able to secure.
Where is this white address?
Okay, so let me finish my point. So Europeans, right? They've been able to fashion the systems of the world in such a way that they take, for example, slavery.
Ah.
They took slaves, they took blacks from Africa, whether they were being sold by their own chiefs or whether they went voluntarily or involuntarily or whatever. But at the end of the day, they were taken into captivity, right? And there was a clear line called race, where a black man was being sold in the sugarcane plantations of the Caribbean. You understand? Then we built their cities, right, using cheap black labor. And and then there was abolishment of slavery. There was quote unquote end of colonialism, freedom, independence, whatever we've called it in Africa, right? But
whatever we decided to, yeah.
Yes, but the structure of white supremacy has stayed. So now the only way that the black man, because the black man exists, because the system has always acknowledged that there exists a black man and a white man. You understand? Those policies were there. We can go and check. Even the founding fathers of America, some of them had slaves, right? We know that. So we're saying, as long as someone is downtrodden, they're going to fight. If it's women who are fighting for equality in the workplace, equality in the home, they're going to fight. There's no way that the guy who is on the top is going to give you a chance if you don't fight for it. So the only way that black people can regain some shares or whatever it is in the world's value chain is to fight. They have to fight, because they've tried negotiation, they've tried all these things. And the fact that the world has had policies based on color, it's there.
Okay. All right. Let's revert to comments also coming in. Brian Muchemo says, no. If we gave the struggle a different name, would it change your view? We are victims. This guy is being naive. I guess this was he was referring to BLM there. So BLM, I don't know if the struggle was given a different name, would it change your view though?
I don't understand that question.
Because Brian says you were being naive, that because of the struggle, it's what really affected our worldview. But if that was changed, would your worldview change as well?
My worldview, I really didn't explain. I think my worldview in terms of what's happening in probably, let's say, in America or in Africa in general. I didn't.
Maybe you can sort of bring us in to that.
Or for me, I don't believe the problems that that I would say Black Americans or Black Africans will really change. And it's not the responsibility of the white people, the white majority in the US, those who own the majority of the world, to do anything. Because at the end of the day, if you're a typical capitalist, you would want to make sure that you carry out your business at the lowest cost possible. You find, the best way in which you can do business. So sometimes it comes at the expense of the people that are, are the minority, or those that are not educated enough or without access to resources. So I feel like what we are having, the problem is that, I think it's an inequality problem that exists in all societies, where you have the rich, you have the poor. And at the end of the day, be it however you want to package it, like in America, we know that Black people commit the majority of the crimes, yet they make up the minority of the people in the country. So you would find that there are 2.5 chances, an average, Black person has a higher chance of committing a crime than a white person. A Black person has a higher chance of committing a crime than a Latino. So at the end of the day, that again feeds into the stereotype that Black people are criminals. So it's not, I feel like it's not in the genetic makeup of one white person or Chinese person just basically viewing Black people as criminals without evidence, but it's because the evidence that is there, that is out there, is that there are higher chances of you meeting a Black person who has a criminal background than you of finding a white person with a criminal background. So the general stereotype is that all Black people are criminal. And again, the other issue is, if you look at American gun law, unlike in the UK, we don't have the issues of police brutality as compared to the US. But Black people are largely they make up the minority or the lower income group of both countries. But why is it in the UK you don't have cases of police brutality and they are higher in America? Partly because most criminals in the US, they are armed. So most of the response that the police will then take in tackling such or suspects of any crime is always, should I say, is always very strict and very tough. And at the end of the day, most cases, it ends up with people losing their lives, sometimes in innocent cases where someone didn't really need force for you to handle such a case. So and then you come to the UK, they have very strict gun laws that don't allow a normal person to carry guns. So chances of people again being assaulted are very slim. So I feel like it's an issue of inequality more than it is an issue about race. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to have most Black communities without funding, like in education, you're likely going to end up living a life of crime. If you are going to have in the neighborhoods without opportunities, without job opportunities, those areas are going again to have high levels of crime. So it's unfortunate that most people of color, they stay in those areas. So at the end of the day, should I say, police brutality and all these unfair injustice systems and so forth are likely to affect people of color or the minority. So at the end of the day, it's then translated as a race issue when it's really an income issue. That's how I see.
Okay. All right. I saw you shaking your head.
No, I'm sorry, but in debates, I don't usually do ad hominem. But at the end, I feel you're out of your depth because you're all over the place. You are talking about injustices, inequalities, according to color lines, according to income. So what are you arguing actually? Because I don't get it anymore. Right? You're confusing and confused. That's what I would say in this particular case.
Yeah, I think if you've already concluded that, I feel like it makes it difficult because probably you should just ask clarity in terms of where the confusion is and yeah. Okay. I think
I can't sit for this. I'm off now because this guy is a bunch of confusion. Sorry, I have to go.
Are you running away from? Maybe educate him, eh?
It's confused.
That's the point. I feel that's the point of having discussions in it. You don't come to for me, I don't come to label you as pompous or condescending or anything. I listen to how you deliver your arguments and then I learn. So at the end of the day, when someone then feels like, oh, well, probably how you are structuring or delivering your arguments is not good enough for me, then you probably, should I say, shallow or down, then I don't feel like that's the way of having discussions. Because for me, I usually come with this on like Mr. Mthungwa Mawere's platforms, because I always feel like most of his things that he says, they are not accepted by a lot of people, but I think I kind of understand where you'll be coming from. That's why I take interest in participating. But if someone has a problem, really, I don't feel like labeling someone as either shallow or down or confused. I don't feel like that's the way people should be discussing, really.
Okay.
So, all right. How did we get where we are now? That somebody would feel offended by another and of exiting.
Yeah, I guess it goes back to the issue of the sort of the conversation, what turn it takes, and how the whole conversation would have started. So if somebody comes in and you sort of bring a different angle from what was being said, as you can see, it's all lives matter versus Black Lives Matter. So I guess as I felt that BLM, you sort of moved away from the said topic. And you are bringing in irrelevant discussions into this conversation, which is sort of derailing the idea behind having this conversation in the first place.
So should conversations have a prescription?
No, conversations are sort of designed. Everybody designs a conversation, and they know exactly what they want the outcome of the short of the conversation to be like.
Like life, you can't predict who you are going to talk to and what they are going to say. So no conversation is scripted unless it's a show, it's a movie.
I guess you've got support BLM. You've got the Rika View says this guy knows what he's saying. Stop making him look like an idiot. He is right. Just because he is not agreeing with you doesn't make him stupid. He is right, very right. I guess you've got somebody who supports what you're saying, BLM.
Thank you. So for me, I feel like probably for him, if he's listening, I just hope, since I joined in the conversation, the moment that I joined and then I was asked like for my views, I guess probably you felt like whatever you were saying before, I was probably just diverting from what he was saying earlier or his argument, or probably was expecting a response from me from what he said. So I think the best thing you could have done is you should have just said like, okay, this is how I see All Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter. And then probably I maybe understand the direction or the trajectory of the conversation, and I try to position my responses so that I address, probably the points that have been raised by everyone. So I feel like that's why probably, you felt the way you felt about my responses.
No, but what was he saying himself?
Sorry, Mr. M, we've got 5 minutes to wrap it up.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
So what was he saying? What was he saying, perhaps, so that we understand what you are saying and what the difference is? Was he saying Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter?
Well, Edzai was of the view that Black Lives Matter at the moment. Yeah, that's his view.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And BLM is saying all lives matter.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the departure point, perhaps, that the arguments may not be reconcilable.
I guess with arguments, no one comes out a winner most of the time, hey?
No, but once you experience it and you hear the other side, then you may be ready to look at the same issue with different eyes.
No, I feel like most of these discussions about race, about they are now being, people tend to personalize them, and if people don't want to discuss like facts on the ground. People tend to be more emotional and try to personalize things. But my simple, I think, argument was that I really don't appreciate, when people are made to feel like they are victims of every situation, when really, probably, if you look at the statistics, you show you police brutality is affecting almost every other race in America, and it disproportionately affects a certain demographic of people that are more prone to be involved in a life of crime more than the other races. So really, the issue we should be talking about is not about whites hating blacks, but what is it that makes people commit crime, and what is it that makes what really is the issue with police brutality. So if people look at those issues separately without attaching race to any issue, then we might find, I think, an objective and a pragmatic solution to the problem. And in that case, I'm saying then all lives matter, because police brutality, systematic discrimination and so forth affects all races, depending on who is pushing that discrimination. So that's all I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think that's that looks the end of the show.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
Gosilati, who wanted to join, but next time, let's have Signor Gosilati to talk about what? To talk about which side of the divide they stand.
Right. Yes. Okay, no, thank you. Thank you, Mr. M, for joining in. BLM, thank you so much also for joining in. And those who are joining in now and wanting to join now, unfortunately, this is where the conversation ends. We'll be back with yet another edition tomorrow on the drive between 3 and 5 p.m. So you can make sure that you join in the conversation at 3 tomorrow. Otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in. And we out.